County, David 22, everything 10-4.
10-4.
My name is Jeremiah Royston. I'm Randolph Wilson's co-defendant. In May of 1991, Randolph Wilson and I, along with two other co-defendants, Hashim O'Neal and Rolfe Davis, were charged with first-degree murder, first-degree burglary, and conspiracy to commit murder. The incident originated from a misunderstanding between me and one of the victims. Now, when I say one of the victims, I'm including myself as a victim, as well as Randolph Wilson as a victim. But let me just say the deceased victim. And to back up this, to be more specific, victim in terms of being a victim of the system, of being railroaded, of being falsely accused, falsely imprisoned for a crime that we did not commit. So the deceased victim, Calvin Hargrove, was my cousin.
I'm an officer for the Department of Corrections. Since I've been there, I've been dealing with different inmates, some good and bad. I can honestly say that every day you hear about different inmates proclaiming their innocence or saying it wasn't them. It started to be an everyday thing until I heard about an inmate by the name of Randolph Wilson. I started to hear details of his story and it made me more intrigued, and I started to get to know the inmate Randolph Wilson for myself. He told me a little bit about his situation, but before I even talk about his situation, when I first saw the inmate, before even speaking to him, my first impression was this big, overwhelming inmate that I needed to have my eye on at all times, and I mean that. But after getting to know Mr. Wilson, I can honestly say that was just a stereotype that I'm wrong for doing myself. Mr. Wilson is not your typical inmate, and when I say that, I mean he carries himself as the everyday human being that you would see walking out in his streets right now, and I can say that sincerely.
Actually, I think some of the, I'm looking at my notes in front of me now, some of the, I think one of the cases was maybe he got a lesser sentence on it, but I mean, first-degree murder and first-degree burglary and conspiracy and all this, I mean, this man should never have been charged with all of these. And what you're saying is true, accessory after the fact, and I know that carries some of the same punishment almost as but he helped. Right. And well, you still have to report it. Exactly. Well, and I was a police officer for a long time. You know, a long time ago, I was a police officer actually in that little town, and I've been working in this field as a bail bonding business and a private investigation company for 12 years, and I have never seen a charge, you know, this kind of a charge on someone when they were nowhere around, they didn't break in. I don't know how in the world. And some of the files are missing from the courthouse, and it just so happened one of the attorneys is the husband of the DA who prosecuted this case, that clearly admitted she didn't turn over some of the information, but it wouldn't have made any difference to the outcome of the case. You know, so this has been a screwed up case from Jump Street, and I just cannot believe that this man has been sitting down all this time on all these murder charges. And the co-defendant, I got written statements from the co-defendant where it said they didn't testify against him. I have, I've got them right in front of me. But I've interviewed one of the Jeremiah Royster. He's written me letters. He's written me a sworn statement, had it notarized, and I've got that, saying that at no time Did Doc Wilson did not order the murder of Calvin Hargrove? He didn't have anything to do with it?
We took the archives of the case. What we found was one of the first notes in there was that page 7 through 95 is missing. That goes back to my point about the DA's husband coming over here that has an office right around the corner from here, taking those pages out maybe last year sometime, and he never supposed to took those pages out of the transcript. This is public knowledge after you've been tried. It should have never been taken out of here. It's for anybody who wants to come back and look over this case and see, but now you can. And it's probably key stuff in like pages 7 through 95. It's probably very, very critical evidence to prove his innocence in there. So we're gonna keep working on it.
And I came down here in April of 1991, and my mother had rented a house from Calvin's mother, Hazel Hargrove, and we stayed right next door to each other. I had a key to Calvin Hargrove's residence, and he had a key to my residence. I was basically left in his custody until my mother returned from Philadelphia to handle some family affairs. However, Calvin Hargrove was on crack. He was addicted. He was on various other drugs. He had drinking problems. So we had an argument one night where he tried to rob me for money to pay off a drug debt that he had owed at one of the co-defendants, Rofe Davis. He owed Rofe Davis some money for drugs. So what happened was, Calvin had tried to take what little I had so that he can either pay off Rofe Davis with respect to this drug debt, or go buy more crack with it. And at that time, I was unwilling to give him more money for that purpose. So he went to the police, the sheriff department here in Warren County, and stated that I had threatened to shoot him with a 9mm pistol. At the time, I did have a 9mm pistol. I had pulled it out and just tried to scare him, just to let him know I'm not going to allow him to take anything from me. Coming from the streets, I felt that that was necessary, but also unnecessary because we were family, we were neighbors. However, he told the police that I threatened to shoot and kill him with that 9mm pistol. I didn't get arrested. The police came down to my residence, and they didn't arrest me because Calvin didn't take out a warrant for my arrest, but they did question me as to what was going on. And I briefly explained to the officers that we just had an argument and I didn't get robbed, no one got hurt, and that I was going to let it go. Well, later on that night, well, prior to that, I had spoken with Randolph Wilson, who had came down in the area next to my residence. Everybody used to hang out at a store right there in Quick City, which is right next to my residence. And he had heard a little bit about what happened in terms of the police showing up, and his whole objective was to maintain peace